everyone, and welcome to Behind the Mic Radio. I am your host, Dawn Mack, and welcome to Monday. It's a brand new week, and we all know how brand new weeks go, right? A lot of people wake up going, oh, it's Monday all over again. I don't know about you, but Friday or Saturday and Sunday are the absolute two fastest days of the entire week. And I've been working on the whole 2 days working, 5 days off plan for a while now. I haven't achieved it yet, but I have a feeling when I get there, a lot of people are going to be very, very happy in the workforce. So welcome to Monday. Welcome to a brand new week, and I hope that the week ahead is going to be a great one for you. And we've got a great guest tonight. I'm so excited to have him here, and what a way to kick off our week here at Behind the Mic Radio. He is an actor that is unbelievable. He has this one-man show that he's doing right now that's called A Little Potato and Hard to Peel, and it's written and performed by this gentleman. It is a hilarious and personal account of growing up with one hand, and it has kind of Shakespeare feel, 80s pop culture, and even the spiritual guidance of Mr. T. And the unique thing about this show is it reveals the differences that keep us apart that tend to ultimately connect us. And so without further ado, I would love to introduce to you tonight David Harrell. Hello, David.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. Doing really good.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being here with us this evening. And I know you've been very busy of late with the show, and you've got so much going on and upcoming festival. And so just to have a little bit of your time is most appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come on and spend a little time with you as well. So
right.
I'm really happy to be here.
Well, ever since I heard about your show, I've just been incredibly intrigued. And first of all, I want to commend you because, obviously, as I was saying in the intro, you have one hand. And the fact that you've been able to go on and do something to show the world that, hey, just because I have one hand doesn't limit me. And
right.
I think that's awesome. And kudos to you for putting it out there so that it gets people talking, but also it helps people to understand that you're really not different just because you have one hand, kind of thing.
Right, absolutely. I think because I was born without my hand, it's sort of been the only way that I've known how to exist in the world. So for me, it was never. It was just always wanting to adapt, to always figure things out, and knowing that I would pretty much figure them out, and being very fortunate to have parents who never let that be an excuse per se. So I think it was with the show. It was an opportunity to not only be able to kind of have a conversation about, look at this, and you see someone who's very different in front of you, telling a story that ultimately is going to hopefully resonate with you and certain things within your own life.
Yes, definitely. And, your parents are to be commended, too, because I think you said it, you hit the nail on the head just now. You were born without a hand, so therefore that was what you knew your entire life. And you just learned to adapt and overcome. And your parents, I'm sure were hugely instrumental in helping you do just that instead of, oh, he's only got one hand kind of thing. And I think in that respect, that almost seems like that would be easier to adapt to having been born with just one hand than someone who loses a hand later in life. I had a friend some years ago at a company I worked for, a sawmill actually, who got his hand caught in a machine while someone turned it on. He was in it working, and it mutilated his hand, and he, regained some use of it, but he was, playing softball full time. He was doing a lot of things with the hand, and, to go from that experience to all of a sudden virtually disabled, it was life-altering for him. So in your case, it just such a positive way for you as you kind of grew and adapted to it.
Right, absolutely. I think, and that's part of what the show kind of is. I think in some ways it's this sort of ode or kind of nod to my parents in a way that I really explore in the first scene of the play. It's really me and my birth and sort of what my parents' expectations were. You know, it's a true story. My dad had a baseball glove that he brought to the hospital the day I was born because I was going to be a baseball player, and he wanted to affirm that on the day of my birth. And the doctors came out, and you know, the family was gathered around, and they told my dad my mom was unconscious in my birth. So they tell this to my dad, and my dad doesn't really know what to say. And the story is that he kind of went to the bathroom, and I'm sure had several minutes to kind of collect himself and his thoughts. And when he came back, the story is that he said, "My son will just play baseball left-handed." And that always stuck with me as this idea of courage that my own dad kind of had in this moment of uncertainty, and the fact that was a true story just that rang true to me, and that's one of the first moments of my play, and I felt that was important. And then, you know, my mom, you know, she, you know, when I was brought to her, you know, she cried and cried and cried, wondering how I would tie my shoes, or if I would go to prom, or if I would ever get married, or if I would have friends, you know, all these questions that she asked. And you know, and then there's the moment that's, you know, when I came home, supposedly, and I always think of it as this big cinematic kind of moment of, you know, my parents and my grandparents and aunts and uncles, sort of this circle of people looking down at me in this crib, and all promising me that I was never going to be different, that they made a promise within themselves that I was not going to be different, and that I was going to do anything and everything that any other little boy would do. And that was sort of their philosophy, because I didn't know anyone else who had gone through this experience. And I felt like I was very appreciative of having a family, not, you know, just my parents, but my extended family, that was very, very loving and just was going to love me in some ways no matter what. And certainly that idea of not being treated differently helped me to adapt and helped me to feel good about myself and to have confidence. But ultimately, I think the realization that I wore this metal hook on my arm as a kid growing up, I think finally that sort of realization that I was different kind of crept its head in. And so I think certainly this support system that I had helped me kind of become the man I was, but it also became, you know, a personal journey to define normal, because I think I had to learn to define that for myself. And I think in my mind I came up with these sort of checklists of things that I could accomplish, and this would make me normal like everyone else. And but no matter what I accomplish, I really would never felt normal. And so I think that in some ways kind of is where my own life story sort of became this theatrical play. And I am from the South. I grew up in South Georgia, and so I was working at a theater company in Columbus, Ohio, and I was telling these stories about my, you know, wonderfully Southern feisty mom and my equally Southern dad from Camden County, Georgia, and all the sort of fun, you know, kind of stories and things that I accomplished and did with one hand, I guess. And this artistic director at this theater company said, "You should write this show." So the idea of the show came, but it was I didn't know how to write it, and I didn't know how it would be interesting if it was just these sort of random stories of me accomplishing something, or like playing baseball or football, or desperately trying to find a girlfriend. I couldn't figure out how to tell that story until I had dinner with a friend and was sort of talking about it. And she and I were friends in high school, and I was telling her I had this story about growing up with one hand and all these challenges that I had to face, and she looked at me and said, what challenges? You were the most confident person in the world, and I always thought you were so together. And all through middle school and high school, I thought if I could only have blonde hair, then I would be pretty. And
oh, wow.
It shocked me because this friend of mine was gorgeous, and I always found her gorgeous. And I think it was that dinner that kind of put it in a broader, bigger perspective for me, that the show could be specifically about my life in a way, but that it would have a universal resonance. And so it's not just me going, wah, 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 I only have one hand. It's something bigger. And it kind of, that sort of started the process of the play, because I think it would be boring if it was just, oh wow, it's this listen to my sad story of woe of only having one hand. That would get old really quickly. But the fact that it's about more than really me, I think the show ultimately is much more than just about my story. I think it starts there, but I think it's bigger than just my specific story.
Well, I have to tell you, your story is absolutely incredible, because I mean, it's just so touching to hear you talk about your story and how you've taken it to a whole new level that goes beyond the bounds of yourself. And, it all really goes back to that moment when you were born. And what really resonates with me is the fact that in that single moment, here your dad is anticipating the birth. He's got all these dreams for you. Your mom does too. And in that moment when they're told that you have only one hand, they had a decision to make, which was, are we going to treat him as if he has one hand, or are we going to treat him as if he can do anything in the world? And that is the reason why you had the confidence, and you never, even though there were times you felt like I'm not completely normal, you had a normal life. You did anything and everything and had all the opportunities. And I think the fact that you had not only your parents' support, but the support of your extended family, wow, that is just amazing and huge. And this show, I mean, when you relate it to a universal theme, for me, the title, we've all had little potatoes, and they're hard to peel. I mean, if you the whole synopsis for me is potatoes is life and problems sometimes, and how we deal with them, and how do we overcome them, and the fact that you have a personal story to share really is an inspiration to anyone with any kind of problem, because look at all you've accomplished. What is my excuse? What is the next person's excuse for not feeling sorry for ourselves, number one, and number two, for not being able to feel like we can accomplish anything we want to accomplish? I mean, look at David Harrell and what he's done, kind of thing,
Well, thank you. And it's funny, that's great what you sort of get out of the title. I think the title is again this sort of ode to my grandfather. My mom's, well, really, it's both sets of grandparents for me were very influential in a variety of different ways. But my mom's dad, who I call Pop, would tell me the story, and he would tell all of us, all of the grandkids, the story that his Little League baseball team was called the Little Potatoes and Hard to Peel, because they were smaller than the other kids and maybe not as talented, but they always play with their hearts. So no matter if they won or they lost, they never got down, because on the inside they were tough and hard to peel. And so when he told me this as a 6-7-year-old kid, I completely thought he was serious, and I imagined this Little League baseball team in the 20s wearing, little potatoes on their jerseys, and little potato hard to peel written out, on the fronts, and pinstripe little baseball uniforms. And that's what I really thought. I really took it seriously. And my grandfather died when I was 12. And his death was very was a big deal in my life because it was the first time someone really close to me passed away. And so it affected me tremendously. And so he sort of left this big impression. And as I got older, and really kind of working on the show and as I said, trying to figure out what this bigger idea was, that it wasn't just about me having missing my hand, but it was something bigger. I kept coming back in some ways to that story, and sort of the idea that he was just telling us a metaphor. It was this metaphor for life, that we're all playing this game of life, and no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in, that we have to stay tough and hard to peel. So it's sort of that certainly is sort of what the show is. It's about not being defined by limitation or allowing circumstances, I think I say a lot, to peel away the core of our humanity, or just peel away who we are. And then hopefully, because of my story and hopefully the ability to connect to it in a way, you see a shared humanity with someone who is different than you, and hopefully that moves us forward to be able to think, oh, we're kind of all in this sort of journey together, and instead of sort of pushing away and creating this sense of other and allowing ourselves to disconnect, that hopefully we can connect in a moment, in 55 minutes in a theater, we can kind of connect as human beings, and so that's I think the bigger idea of the story.
And what a beautiful concept, David. I mean, I think about it too as, we are all connected, and we all each have talents and gifts and things to offer to one another, and and the world in this journey of life that we all are traveling on together, trying to fight our way through as best we can. And I think too, your show is a great way for people to really be mindful that we're all different and we're all unique, but we all have our special qualities that make us who we are, the individuals that we are. So, what a great concept. I mean, and I think about the blessings of life, and as you were born without a hand, how that has led you to this, which is creating something that, yes, was kind of born of yourself, but it has gone on to, appeal and help the greater good of mankind everywhere because of the concept of the story, which I think is just absolutely lovely.
Well, great. Well, yeah, I hope so. I hope it is a part of that not only is an audience going to laugh and say, oh wow, this guy had some interesting experiences and had some sort of characters as members of his family, but they're also going to hopefully have their soul kind of inspired and connect, as I said, like together as human beings and sort of be able to share moments together, which I think are great.
Well, and the other aspect to all of this is that you've also, for the listeners, I want to share that you've adapted this for younger audiences in another one-man show entitled The Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook. Now, talk a little bit about that, because I've been seeing, in feeds, on social media that, you've been going to various schools and presenting this. And as I understand it, and you mentioned it earlier as well, that you had a hook on that hand when you were young, and talk a little bit about that. And how do students react to the show when they see it?
Well, Little Potato, my idea was that it's a very family-friendly show, and that this was a show that I could take into schools, and I've done that. I've gone into some schools, and a lot of the feedback I got was, the story is great, but is there something that you can design for like younger kids, like kids K through 2, K through 3, that aren't really going to get this journey for a girlfriend or this, some of the other themes that kind of run through Little Potato, where middle school, high school, it kind of resonates a lot. But so I had this idea because I did have this hook. My parents, again, didn't know anyone else that looked like me or really anyone else who had had the same experience. So at 6 weeks old, I think, they took me to a Shriners hospital. Someone had suggested that. And at the time, the Shriners would fit young kids who were born without an arm or hand. They would fit us with a prosthetic called the mitt, which basically looked like a big winter mitten, and it helped us with our balance, and that's what it was designed for, so you would kind of keep a sense of both sides of your body as you developed. And then they moved you to a metal hook, and the hook was designed to help you pick up objects, to help tie your shoes, to help, grasp, whether it be a bicycle, handlebar, or whatever. So I started wearing this hook probably, 3, 4, 5 years old, and kind of wore it most of my childhood. And so the idea for the younger show, it was still sort of this autobiographical show of myself, but I came up with the idea that it's a little more of a fictional account of not being included on the playground, no matter what the game was, because kids didn't really know how to take the fact that I had this metal hook until the game became Peter Pan. And then it made sense because, oh, wow, guy with that creepy hook on your arm, you can be Captain Hook. That makes sense. That's who you are. It's Captain Hook. It's perfect. And the sort of idea that, oh, I'm included now, appealed to me. So there's this excitement of being included, and I certainly remember that as a kid, really wanting to be included and really working very hard to do well in sports and to do other things to be included. So the idea of that desire made sense, and the need to want to play. And so the game, when it's Peter Pan, it's fine for me to play. But when it's not Peter Pan, they don't really, it's kind of, we don't know how to let you play. We can't see you as anything else but Captain Hook. And so I grow tired of always being Captain Hook because I want to be a hero and I want to be more than just Captain Hook. So I decided to change the game. So Captain Hook begins to save Wendy, and he tries to encourage everyone to join together, and the kids don't know how to respond to that. And it becomes you can't really play unless you play the part you're supposed to play. And so then I have to go on this journey to figure out what are ways that, how could I be a hero with a hook or even without a hook? And through that journey, I learned that I can adapt and play different sports, and that Luke Skywalker, who was the biggest hero of my childhood, actually gets his hand chopped off in The Empire Strikes Back. And so the fact that I could be that Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back is an entry point to the kids thinking outside of the box, and then learning the lesson that I could be Luke Skywalker even if I only have one hand, that I wouldn't need to get a Luke Skywalker hand like he does in the movie, that in our game Luke Skywalker could have one hand, and that's actually pretty cool. And ultimately I could be a hero even if I don't look like everyone else. And that we could learn and adapt and play different games to include people who might look different than us. So that was where the idea of that show, because I think for younger kids that makes more sense to them, the sense that they understand play, but I think, and hopefully the dialogue that can happen is that when you may see someone who looks a little bit different, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's all that person is. That they can be so much more than just that first perception. If we get to know them a little bit more, and then if we include them and allow them to play, that kind of makes that person feel like a hero, and ultimately by that acceptance, that really makes the kids themselves the heroes. So that was that's the impetus for that younger version.
And another one of the great takeaways that I got from your description of this was that, if we don't like our lives as they are, there is nothing that says we can't change the game of life. If we're playing this game of life, we always have the opportunity to change the game of life and become who we want to become and strive to be who we want to be. And we don't always have to be in one particular role or one particular character or mindset. I mean, that's the beauty of life. We have that ability. Whether people do it is a different story. But I think, again, it kind of goes back to the fact that your story is so powerful and is such a great testament to inspire people to realize and motivate them and let them understand that, you're not limited in any way, shape, or fashion. The sky is really the limit.
Right. And that whatever, circumstance, and again, my circumstance, you might look at, someone can look at the fact that I was born without a hand and say, oh, if that were me, I have no idea what I would never be able to do I would not have accomplished anything. I don't know what I would have done. And, but and I look at folks who have a lot of different circumstances than me, people who come from families that weren't as supportive or had other difficulties that might not be physically different. But those circumstances, I will sometimes look at those and say, I don't know what I would have done if I was in those circumstances. So I think the bigger idea is that no matter what the circumstances are, that we don't allow those things to define exactly who we are, that we can lay claim to ourselves and the power we have within ourselves to say that's not going to define who I am, that I'm going to move forward in life, I'm going to do something good. And I think as humans, we, for the most part, want to do that. We want to move ourselves forward, and we want to do good. And so I hope that, again, is something that the show reinforces.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure it will, and I know that it has already received so much critical acclaim, just from your performance of it, the story itself. It has really got people talking, and so much so that you have been tapped to be part of this all-for-one solo play festival in New York that is taking place. I mean, it's coming up. It's around the corner. Talk a little bit about how you got picked to be a part of this incredible festival.
Well, it's one of those things where you apply and cross your fingers. I had a great opportunity. There's another solo festival here in New York called Unite Solo, and I had done that last year. And someone had suggested that I look into the All for One Festival, and of course it's great because it's a smaller festival, so there are fewer artists, but the festival really takes care of the artists. They really support the artists. It's a community of folks who really love solo performance as an art form, and so I kind of wrote my cover letter and certainly gave information about the show. And the festival is very interested in stories that move us and stories that inform us and inspire us. And I think, it kind of fit in. It fit into what they were looking for. And I was very fortunate that certainly they read the show and then they watched, some video of it too. And and I was chosen. And the other artists that are part of this festival are, I encourage everyone to go to the website. That is www.afofest.org, and they can look at all the other artists who are part of this festival along with myself, and they're amazing artists. And these are all the stories are different, but yet they're all kind of powerful and interesting ways. Number one, of a solo artist to tell a story, and just fascinating stories in general.
Oh, I wish I were closer to New York. I would love to take it in because, I've heard so much about it, and it just very, very unique and interesting performers, and just unlike anything you would see normally. And I wish it were a traveling show. I really do. And it could be here in North Carolina because I would love that. Although I do understand that you are supposed to be coming to North Carolina to perform your show early next year. And so I am, a little birdie told me, so I have marked my calendar and I'm going to try to get out because where you're going to be in North Carolina is about 35 to 40 minutes from where I live. So it's practically a hop, skip, and a jump. So I definitely am going to pencil that in and try to get out to see it because I would love to see this. I'm sure it is just absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love you to see it, and I'm excited about going back to North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina for 6 years and went to graduate school, and so I have a lot of good memories of North Carolina. My wife is from North Carolina, so we get down there every once in a while. So it's good. That's going to be great to get back to the state. So it'll be awesome.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind my asking, what part of North Carolina were you based in when you were here?
I lived in Raleigh for 3 years. I worked for a small theater company there for about 2 years. Then lived in Raleigh for 3, and then I went to graduate school in Greensboro for 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm about a 40-minute drive from Raleigh, so I work over in Chapel Hill at that famous university that so many people hear about. So that's kind of my day job. But, yeah, I love the state. I've lived here my whole life, and I love the fact that we have the mountains on one side, the coast on the other, and within it's a nice day trip either way. But it's a beautiful state. And so I'm glad you had the opportunity to live here for a piece of time and that you're able to bring your show here. What a way to kind of come back home, so to speak.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It will be fantastic. But yeah, I mean, first things first. In terms of the All for One Festival, it started this past weekend, the festival, and my first performance will be Saturday, and I'll do The Boy Who Will Be Captain Hook, and then on Sunday I do A Little Potato, and so there are four Little Potato shows and 2 Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook performances.
Well, David, I am so excited for you and your show. It just sounds absolutely phenomenal, both of them. And congratulations for getting picked up as part of the All for One Festival. We wish you much success with it. And how exciting. So people who come out to see it are in for a real treat, I am sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time and letting me talk a little bit about it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so very welcome, and we'd love to have you back anytime, and look forward to seeing you when you come to North Carolina early next year.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Have a great night.
All right, you too. Take care, David.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All righty. Bye-bye. We've been speaking with David Harrell, who is he is an actor, but he's also the playwright of the 2 shows that we have been speaking with him about, one being A Little Potato and Hard to Peel, the other being The Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook. And let me give you a quick rundown of those dates. If you are in the New York area, the All for One Festival is taking place at the Cherry Lane Theater at 38 Commerce Street. Now, David will be performing his Little Potato and Hard to Peel show Sunday, October 20th at 7 p.m. and Friday, October 25th at 7 p.m. And October 27th at 4 p.m. and also Saturday, November 9th at 7 p.m. So you've got a couple of opportunities there to get out and see it. The Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook, his other show, he will be performing that there at the Cherry Lane Theater on Saturday, October 19th at 11 a.m. and also on Saturday, November 2nd at 11 a.m. So you have two opportunities to see that show. So I understand it's a great festival and one of the most extraordinary festivals out there with a variety of great performers doing solo shows and really bringing their craft and talent to audiences there. And it's a highly prestigious festival, so it's one of the best in the country from what I understand and what I'm told. So get out to see it if you can. There's a lot going on. If you want to go to the All for One Festival website, again, their web address is afofest.org, and it has a rundown of all of the performers that will be there for the duration of the festival that you can check out at any given time. If you would like to keep up with David on social media, you can visit his website at davidharrellonline.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at David_Harrell. And also, he is on Facebook. He has a Facebook page for both of his shows, A Little Potato and Hard to Peel, and The Boy Who Would Be Captain Hook. So if you just do a search for either one of those, you will find him. So we want to give David Harrell a huge, huge shout-out and many thanks for being our special guest this evening. And also, thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And if you're brand new to our program, we're glad you joined us this evening and made tonight your first time here. Now, coming up on Wednesday night, we have a phenomenal guest with us, and I'm very excited to be bringing her on. Deana Martin will be here at 8 p.m. Eastern. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the name Deana Martin, she is the daughter of Dean Martin, the legendary, iconic performer Dean Martin. And she is also a singer, songwriter, performer, and she has taken to paying tribute to her father's legacy through music. And she has a song out that is a collaboration called True Love, which was a Dean Martin song that she has taken and collaborated with him, put her vocals with his vocals from the past, similar to what Natalie Cole did with Nat King Cole many, many years ago. But it is a beautifully done song, and it's really cool and nostalgic all at the same time to have her and her dad singing together on the same song. So she will be here on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we'll be talking about her upcoming tour, her song True Love, and everything that's going on with her currently. So we hope that you'll be able to be here to join us for that. Again, many thanks to David Harrell for being with us this evening, and also thank you so much for joining us as well. And we will see you right back here again on Wednesday night. So have a great evening all. Take care. God bless. And we'll see you back here again real soon. Good night. Thanks for listening to tonight's show. You can connect to Behind the Mic Radio on Twitter at BT Mic Radio and on Facebook at Behind the Mic Radio. Check out our website at BehindTheMicRadio.com. Also, follow us right here on Blog Talk Radio, where you can stay up to date on all upcoming shows. Every episode is available for immediate download upon the conclusion of each broadcast, and as always on iTunes. Thank you for joining us.